6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We're going live.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul.
What's up, folks? We are live. Join me for these every Wednesday and Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. But if you can't make it, that's what the replays are for. Before we get too far into this, let's start off with some housekeeping. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit those notifications. Drop a comment either in the the live chat or after the replay down below. Either one or both. Why not both? They help out in the algorithm when you guys are participating. It's weird that way. If you have a specific question, send us a super chat. Now, if you send a super chat, I played this drop on Wednesday. But after the show, RP Thor hit me up and he's like, "Hey man, why'd you say simping ain't easy?" Like, it's pimping ain't easy. Come on, guys. Come on, man. Anyway, so because of that, I have a new drop. But since we're not at the 8-minute mark yet, I don't want to get demonetized. I'm not going to play it for you. But if you send a super chat, I will play it for you today, and you guys will love it. You guys will absolutely love it. All right, trust me on this. Send a super chat. Test this theory. All right. Be sure to follow me on social media. I'm at Come On Man Pod or at Come On Man Podcast on pretty much every platform. My original plan was to be at Come On Man Podcast on every platform. I used to be on TikTok until I got banned. That was in 2021 that I got banned. And so I had to rename it to Come On Man Pod when I created my new account. And I just kept that name for Twitter. And but I use Come On Man Podcast on the other platforms. That's why it's confusing that way. And be sure to join the Patreon, patreon.com/comeonmanpod. You can join for as little as $10, and then you get on the beer credits at the end of Monday's YouTube shows, right? That's like the flagship show that most people tune in for, because that's my primary interview platform. And, that's where a lot of people like to tune in to listen to the guests and listen to me interview the guests. And so you get added to the credits to that, but you also get all of those episodes ad free. So without this intro stuff, without any, YouTube ads or whatever, Spotify ads, you just get just the interview portion. So that's only $10 a month and you support the show. And then if you want any kind of like coaching, dating help or whatever, you could join tier 2 or tier 3. It's pretty affordable. Check it out. Get on the email list. So, mentioning that I got kicked off TikTok, I decided I needed to start an email list so that I can get in contact with people. And then for your troubles, I will send you some free stickers, free of charge, postage paid. Just get on the list. And then finally, we have my practical law of attraction course, which I'm going to be talking about today. This is where I will show you in this course how to reprogram your subconscious mind so that you can achieve goals so big that it will literally blow your mind. And it's not magic. And that's what we're going to get into a little bit today. There was a coupon code. Unfortunately, fortunately for me, those all sold out. So there's no more code. But I might have one here in the future. Stay tuned. But definitely check out the course. If you've been meaning to check it out, now's the time. Now's the time. All right. Okay. Yeah. And then speaking of the course, I'm going to play you guys a quick commercial for that, and then we will get to the topic at hand. Oh, we're almost at that 8-minute mark, guys. We're almost safe to play that that super chat drop. All right, here we go. Man, I am like, the problem with these morning shows is like, I'm just not mentally ready for them. All right, here we go. Do you want a positively unfair advantage in life? Most people tiptoe through life hoping they'll make it safely to death. They let life happen to them. Up until now, I'm assuming that's been your situation. Am I right about that? But you know deep down that you're destined for more. You know that you deserve more money or better relationships. Yet you're stuck doing the same thing over and over again, getting the same results. That ends today, because you're going to check out my Practical Law of Attraction course. My Practical Law of Attraction course will give you the tools necessary to write your own story. You will be in the driver's seat of your life, not just the passenger. Your life is already getting better because you're listening to this message right now. Access this course at loa.comeonmanpod.com. That's loa.comeonmanpod.com. When you're done with this course, the results that you see for yourself will be better. Others will see how your life is changing for the better. And you'll know that everything in this course is true because your life will be better. But the choice is up to you. You have to decide if you want to stay where you are or achieve goals so big that it will blow your mind. The law of attraction is nothing without action. So what are you waiting for? Act now. Act now. In fact, since we're going to be talking about today, I'm just going to leave this up. It's just going to be easier. So let's talk about this law of attraction course that I got going on, and how it got me to a spot on Rule 0. Now, the funny thing about this, right, is I absolutely followed the steps that I lay out in this course to get on to Rule 0. Absolutely did. But the guys on the panel don't really like the law of attraction. We were talking backstage after one of the shows, and Paul Benjamin's like, I wouldn't have called it that. I wouldn't have called it the law of attraction. I would have renamed it or something. It's pretty funny. I get it. There's a lot of negative connotation with the concept of the law of attraction. I think a lot of that has to do with the movie and the book, The Secret. If you go back and read some of the books that inspired Rhonda Byrne to create that book, it's not really laid out like magic genie granting wishes, right? But that's how they made it seem in this movie, that it's all just magic and things just materialize. They manifest, right? So obviously, there's going to be a lot of people that look at that and go, bullshit. Oh, good. I'm at the 8-minute mark. I can say that. YouTube. If you guys want to hear the drop for the super chat, send a super chat. We can play it now. We're at the 8-minute mark. So anyway, a lot of people watched that movie, The Secret, and they're like, this is absolute bullshit, right? And if you go and look up the law of attraction on Google, that it will tell you it's a pseudoscience, and it is. I'm not going to dispute that. It is technically a pseudoscience, right? It's never been held up to scientific scrutiny. A lot of it is based on sort of anecdotal evidence. But it sort of goes hand in hand. And I talk about this a little bit in the course, but I don't dwell on it, right? But it sort of goes hand in hand with almost all religions. And here's an example of it. I didn't want to go into religion too much, but there's passages in the Bible, and these two are really good examples of it, that where religion sort of talks about the concepts of law of attraction, right? So I'm just going to read these to you guys. I'm not trying to get all, Christian on you, but in Matthew 21:22, it says, "In all things whatsoever you shall ask in prayer, believing is the key part here, you shall receive." And then also in Mark 11:24, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it," so that you have to sort of in your mind picture that you already have it. and it will be yours. If you go through the course, I also give some examples from Buddhism and also from the Quran too. But yeah, I mean, like this sort of goes hand in hand with any religion. Religion hasn't been proven by science either. It's sort of faith based. It's based on what results have you seen in your life, kind of thing, right? So, the funny thing is like, yeah, it's a pseudoscience. It's never been held up to scrutiny. But once you start practicing the principles in this stuff, you start seeing it work for you. Like you won't be able to dispute it. You won't be able to dispute it in your mind. But the problem is, a lot of people won't even let themselves get there. They have this self-limiting belief where they're just like, they just dismiss it and they won't even try it out. You know what I mean? So there's a religious explanation for it. There's also this quantum theory explanation for it. And I'm not going to get too far into that. I get into it a little bit more in the course itself. But this is where you hear things about like the law of vibration and quantum field theory and quantum entanglement and Kirlian photography and stuff like that. And if you didn't know what Kirlian photography is, this guy, I think his name is Young Kirlian, developed a way to take pictures of you where you could actually see the energy radiating from your body. It's kind of fascinating. Quantum field theory. After this, if you want to Google that and go down that rabbit hole on YouTube, like that is fascinating. That is fascinating stuff. That's actually there's scientists are showing that like our thoughts impact the world around us with quantum field theory. It's pretty fascinating. But I didn't want to get lost in the sauce in this course with that because it is so complex that a lot of people just like their eyes glaze over and then they just tune out. You know what I mean? So the problem with the religious explanation are, people that are sort of agnostic or atheist. They don't believe in like a higher power. So then they immediately dismiss that explanation. Right. And then the people that just don't frankly understand quantum theory, which is really complicated stuff, they just dismiss the quantum theory explanations of it. So what I wanted to do with this course was I wanted to sort of break it down into the psychological aspect of it, right? There's a psychological explanation for all of this as well. And so that's what I wanted to focus on with this course is really breaking it down to what we're really doing here. And that's changing our paradigm. If you didn't know, paradigm is sort of how you see the world, right? That's your reality. It's and a lot of that is formed as you're growing up, right? When you're growing up and you're a baby, baby to like, I don't know, 3 years old, I think you're basically just walking around as a walking subconscious mind, and everything that is going on in your environment, you're sort of absorbing, and that forms your worldview. That's what you believe, whether it's true or not, right? And I go into it more in the course, but people that are born into poverty tend to stay poor, and it's not because they don't have the same opportunities that everyone else has, especially in the United States, to get out of poverty. And you see it happen all the time. You see rags to riches stories, right? And one thing that I really try to drive home in the course is that if one man can do something, another man can do it. If you follow what the steps that they took, you can achieve the same things. You know what I mean? It's not magic, but most people will stop. They won't even try because of their paradigm, their worldview. So there's a clip that I play in the course. I'm going to play it for you guys here. It's from Bob Proctor. It's from the Procter Gamble Institute YouTube channel, where Bob Proctor explains paradigm, and he explains it like the best I've ever seen. And he explains it in such a simple way that most people are like, okay, yeah, I get this. And I love this explanation. So but one thing I did with this clip is because I really want to focus on the psychological aspects, of law of attraction in this course. I cut out anything that, he starts talking about like vibrations and stuff like that. That's all edited out. But it's really smooth. And once you watch this, you'll understand what this course is really about. So let's watch that real quick.
I'm going to explain paradigms in such a way that a child could understand it, but I'm not going to insult your intelligence. Now let's think for a moment. Our mind controls everything. Now let this here represent your subconscious mind. And this represent your body. Do you know your subconscious mind is programmed with something called a paradigm? Do you know what a paradigm is? Paradigm is a multitude of habits. Now, a habit is nothing but an idea that is fixed here in the subconscious mind that you act on without any conscious thought. And it's our actions that produce our results. If we want to get really technical, it's the action causes a reaction, and the action-reaction alters the conditions, circumstance, and environment in our life. Now, we are programmed genetically. That's why we look like our relatives. But then after birth, we're programmed with our outside world. If you were born, let's say, in New Jersey, to an English-speaking Roman Catholic family, but you were taken to China and placed in the suburbs in a home that maybe knows nothing about English. They might be Buddhist, they might not have any religion. Do you know that you would grow up fluent in Chinese and have absolutely no knowledge of the English language? You see, whatever goes in from the outside world when we're children becomes programming. We're programmed genetically and then we're programmed environmentally. Well, at a certain age, a psychic barrier comes up here. And we develop something that's called a conscious mind. And the conscious mind has hooked up to it sensory factors. You can see here, smell, taste, touch. And here we have higher faculties. We have something called intellectual factors. We have perception, intuition, the will, reason, imagination, all these marvelous tools here. Now there's a power flows into our conscious mind, and we have the ability to think anything we want to think. Do you know what we're going to think? We're going to think thoughts that are in harmony with the paradigm. Now you can build negative ideas or you can build positive ideas. We build ideas that are in harmony with the paradigm. Do you know why? If the paradigm is built with X-type energy, you're going to think X-type thoughts. If you have been raised with a paradigm where lack and limitation is common, it's just the way it is, you'll never become wealthy. If that is the thinking, oh, I know intellectually we know we can become wealthy, but the paradigm says no. You will probably take this power that flows into your conscious mind that you could make anything out of it you want, and you'll make ideas that are in harmony with the paradigm. Now, your paradigm is controlling your results. You can have people that have all kinds of degrees here. Intellectually, they're brilliant, but the results don't match. You'll find other people, no formal education, no business experience, their results, they're earning millions of dollars. Why? It's the paradigm. Now, what you want to do is learn how to change the paradigm. And when you change the paradigm, you change your entire life. Think about that for a while.
Think about that for a little while, guys. And that's what I show you how to do in this course, how to change that paradigm. And it's amazing the results that you get once you basically change your mindset about things. Your results are incredible. Another thing that I point out in this course, besides, changing our paradigm, but we also are activating what's called our reticular activating system, right? Now, what is that? To break it down very simply, our brains take in tons of information all the time, right? we have, all of our senses is picking up information all the time. And if we actively were thinking about all the sensory information that we're pulling in, we would go insane. We, we would go insane. So our brains tend to filter out a lot of stuff, right? A lot of stuff you're just not aware of. Your brain just filters it out because it's really trying to focus on stuff that keeps you alive. You know what I mean? Focuses on the goals in front of you, the tasks at hand. So when you focus on really big goals, right? All of a sudden, because your brain is looking for stuff related to these goals, you start seeing things more, right? You start seeing more opportunities, places where like you never really thought of before. So that's one really cool thing about it. An example of this is if I told you, and I like to use it, I use this in the course as well, but if I told you to look around your room and find something red, all of a sudden you'd look around and you go, oh, look, there's a picture over there. It's got a flag in it. There's red stripes on it. The picture in the background's got red colors. My curtains are red. Obviously the light behind me is red, right? But you would do the same thing. You'd look around your room and you'd start finding little things that have red in it. Stuff that you didn't really notice before because you weren't looking for things like, something red. In the book, How to Be a 3% Man by Corey Wayne, he talks about this phenomenon. He says, when you start focusing on certain things, right? Like let's say you decide that you want to buy, I don't know, a red Honda Civic, right? You all of a sudden will start seeing red Honda Civics everywhere, where you didn't really notice them before. That's an example of your reticular activating system. Another thing that I point out in this course is that our subconscious mind it's always working. It's never shut off, right? When you go to sleep at night, your conscious brain tends to, rest, and then your subconscious is always working. So the stuff that I outlined in this course basically keeps this stuff, your goals that you put that you want to achieve, it puts that on the forefront of your mind, and your subconscious just sits there and cranks away at how to make that a reality. Have you ever been in the shower and you're sitting there and all of a sudden you just get like an amazing thought, like you get like an epiphany. Oh, I should do this, right? That's your subconscious mind at work. It's constantly just problem solving. So the thing is if you give your mind $1 million problem, it will crank away and try to find $1 million solution to it. As long as you're focused on it, right? Our minds are amazing things that way. So what tends to hold us back is we end up having this little voice of doubt in our head when it comes to stuff like this, right? Let's say you're working a corporate job that you hate, and you have a really great business idea, and you want to go off and be an entrepreneur. Now, I'm not recommending being an entrepreneur for everybody because it's not for everybody, right? If you like where you're at, there's no reason to like, oh, I'm going to go be an entrepreneur because some guy on the internet said you have to be. No, man. No, not at all. But let's say that is something that you've always wanted to do. You hate being a corporate, slave, but you have this little voice of doubt saying, don't do it. Most businesses fail, and you've got a comfy job here. You're making ends meet. You're sort of comfortable where you're at, right? Well, the thing about our brains is our brains tend to want to keep status quo. They want to keep you where you're at because you're safe there. Our brains really are just trying to keep us alive, right? So your brain will tend to talk you out of stuff, out of taking risks, because it is afraid of what might happen, But with no risk comes no reward either. You know what I mean? So the stuff that I talk about in this course sort of reprograms your brain into believing that you can achieve these goals. It also oftentimes will just completely bypass that little voice altogether. It's pretty fascinating. Definitely check out the course. The link's in the description too, if you're curious about it. So let's talk about how I use this to get on Rule 0. So at the beginning of 2021, story time, guys. At the beginning of 2021, I really decided I wanted to grow the podcast, and I wanted to take it out from the beginnings, right? This podcast, I've talked about it before. This podcast started out as a podcast for members of the 3% Man Facebook group. And so I was just, it was basically, that was my audience. My audience was just the other guys in the group essentially. And I would have other guys from the group on, and I would interview them about their journeys. And it was, around December 2020, going into January 2021, where I decided, you know what, I think I want to grow the channel a little bit. I think I want to start interviewing authors and people outside the group. And but I had no idea. I had no idea how I was going to do that. I've never done anything like that in my life. And then more importantly, though, and this is one of the things I asked people to do in the course, is I wanted to set a goal so big that if it happened, it would blow my mind. So I said, okay, well, not only am I going to reach out and get people outside the group on the show and start interviewing authors and stuff like that, I specifically want to interview Dr. Robert Glover and Corey Wayne. So I made that a goal. And the thing about goal setting too is that sometimes, the goals that we set out for don't always come to fruition, especially when you're dealing with other people, right? You can't control other people, and none of this is magic. And I'm going to stress that a lot. None of this is magic, right? I can't hypnotize someone into coming on my show. If they don't want to do it, it's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? But I set that as a goal. I had no idea how to get in contact with some of these authors. And so I set a goal to have Dr. Glover on and Corey Wayne. But when you're setting these types of goals, you also want to be open to have better things happen, because sometimes you'll hit, walls, you'll hit roadblocks along the way. And the cool thing about that is a lot of people, well, the sad thing about that is when you hit a roadblock, a lot of people will quit. They'll be like, well, I give up. This didn't work out for me, right? But if you change your mindset about that sort of thing, what you'll find is those roadblocks lead you on a detour, and you end up with something better oftentimes, right? So we'll get into that. So, so I really focused on the steps that I talk about in this course. And what ended up happening was sometime maybe middle of the year, randomly, one of my 3% brothers, who actually is going to be on the podcast Monday, he has a channel called Awakened Man. His name is Richard Joy. All of a sudden he DMs me. He goes, dude, I interviewed Dr. Robert Glover. I was like, what? Dude, I that's one of my goals this year. How did you do it? Oh, I went to his website. He's got an email. What? It's that easy? So I went to Dr. Robert Glover's website, sent him an email, and I didn't hear back from him for probably about 6 months. He was on hiatus, but he got back to me, and guess what? His interview is probably one of my most downloaded episodes of all time. So, but because of that, I was like, oh, well, I wonder if I could do the same thing to Corey Wayne. So I sent an email to Corey, never heard back from Corey, never heard back from him. And it was starting to get to the end of the year. And one of the things too, I talk about in this course is setting goals and then setting specific dates to achieve those goals. Right. And then I also talk about in the course why you may want to do that and you may not, right? If you read the book Think and Grow Rich, he talks about how setting vague goals gives you vague results. But if you read the book, The Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read by Andrew Capp, he says, don't set a time on it, because if you don't make that time, all of a sudden that puts a lot of doubt in your head. You know what I mean? So you're sort of setting yourself up for failure. So you need to sort of balance that with what you want to do. But I set a goal. Like by the end of 2021, I will have interviewed Robert Glover and Corey Wayne. So that happened with Dr. Glover, but coming up near the end of the year with Corey Wayne, it was starting to look like that wasn't actually going to happen. I put out, let's see here. I had some guys from the 3% Man group. They went to one of his videos and, like, I don't know, 50 of them basically spammed one of his videos saying, hey, when are you going to go on Paul's show? And up until that point, I sort of thought that maybe he just hadn't seen my emails or he hadn't seen my tweets. I had a Twitter campaign that had like 900 retweets with him tagged in it, and never heard from him. And but when the 3% Man guys went to his page, he went through and like deleted all their comments. So it was that point I was like, damn, like he actually is seeing this stuff. He's just actively basically telling me to kick rocks. And so that was a roadblock. And most people would have quit at that point. But I was like, I was really just like, trying to think of, maybe something better is going to come along. Something better is going to come along. A friend of mine named Guy, he, big fan of Paul Benjamin, Apex Mindset, Paul Benjamin. He's like, dude, you need to get Paul Benjamin on your show. And up until that point, I hadn't really seen anything that Paul had done. I didn't really know Paul that well. I didn't know his material that well. So I looked him up and I was like, oh, he's a Rule Zero guy. And the thing is, at that point, I had a really negative idea of what Red Pill was, and two, Rule Zero specifically, because as I was coming up in the 3% Man group, there was also this Rule Zero group on Facebook that was designed. It was ran by Rollo and I think Rich Cooper at the time and some other guys. And if you guys were ever a part of that group, the Rule Zero Facebook group was a cesspool of women haters and black pillars and doomers. It was like, you go in there and you're just like, Jesus Christ, like this is terrible. So I had this idea of that's what Rule Zero was. I thought that, Rule Zero was, a bunch of women hating black pillars. And I thought black pill was red pill at that time, sort of. So I was like, okay, well, I was like, well, if, Paul Benjamin probably has no idea who I am. So, maybe you should reach out to him. And so Guy did. Guy went to Paul Benjamin and said, hey, you should go on my friend Paul's channel. Paul Benjamin's cool as hell. And so he was like, yeah, I'm down. So I ended up having Paul Benjamin come on my show. We did an episode called Red Pill Toxic versus what is it? Red Pill Aware versus Red Pill Toxic. That was the theme of the show. And after that, one of the things that Paul was telling me was that one of the reasons that Rollo, does what he does is because it saves men's lives. And it never even dawned on me that was something that the Red Pill community was thinking about. And so it was around this time I start, I'm thinking that this Corey Wayne thing's not going to happen. I'm really focusing on, what else could come about. And one day in the shower, just get this epiphany, a lot of you'll find that you get these epiphanies a lot, right? When you're focused on this type of stuff, get this epiphany to reach out to Rollo. And this actually came after that discussion with Paul. And also I was going through some podcast, I just did a search for Rollo, and like the top of the list was this no-name podcast that I had never heard of. You probably haven't even heard of it either. I don't even know what it's called, but it was just a random Joe Blow podcast, and Rollo was a guest on it. And I was like, I bet if Rollo's a guest on this dude's channel, I could probably get a hold of Rollo and he'd probably come on my show. So I start digging around. How do I get in contact with Rollo? Robert Glover, I emailed him. So I went looking around for Rollo's email. I couldn't find an email for Rollo at that time. You can find Rollo's email now, like on his live streams. I think he has it in the descriptions. I'm not saying spam Rollo, but if you really have like a legit business reason to contact him, that's where you can find it. But one day I was on Twitter, I'm screwing around, and all of a sudden I noticed that Rollo tweets a lot. Rollo spends a decent amount of time on Twitter. And so I was like, you know what? Let me just send him a tweet. So I tweeted him and I said, Rollo, how do I book you for an interview? And he got back to me in 5 minutes, right? It's amazing, right? It might be an amazing coincidence that I happened to be on Twitter at the same time as him, and I sent a tweet and he happened to see it right away, right? But you'll find that once you start doing a lot of this stuff, a lot of coincidences happen. It's almost spooky. But the funny thing about that, it's not that he got back to me within 5 minutes. It's that Rollo never gets back to anybody in 5 minutes. If you send him a DM, you won't hear from him all day, right? Sometimes you won't hear from him for 2 or 3 days. Dude is busy as hell. And on that day, I sent him a tweet, got back to me in 5 minutes. We set up the interview. So one of the things I talk about is how you sort of want to be open to something better coming along. And in hindsight, having Rollo come on the podcast was way better than having Corey Wayne on the podcast. Just like Robert Glover being on the podcast was great, but it didn't really open that many more doors for me, right? It's not like I was able to get a whole lot of interviews, because of his friends or the people that he works with, right? I was able to sort of name drop when, I reached out and pitched people to come on my show, but, Corey Wayne doesn't really work with anybody. I think the closest is, he works with, Anthony Johnson. And if you think about it, if I had Corey on the podcast, I might have ended up, working with Anthony Johnson, which, would have been terrible. That guy screws everybody over. So having Rollo on actually opened up way more doors for me in a positive direction that I never would have thought of, because with having him on, having Paul Benjamin on, I was able to, reach out to like Aaron Clary and say, hey, I interviewed Rollo and Paul Benjamin, and I reached out to Rich Cooper and said the same thing. And I was able to get those guys on the show. And then, eventually I've sort of worked my way down the Rule Zero panel, getting everybody on my show, right? So getting everyone, to sort of meet me, talk with me, get to know them better. And I think it was like right after Rich Cooper, having Rich on my show, because I'd read Unplugged Alpha, and I was like, this book is amazing, right? And I'd already read a couple of Rollo's books by then as well. But I looked at Rich's YouTube channel, and I looked at Corey Wayne's YouTube channel. I think Rich's is actually bigger. So I decided to change my goal to have Rich on. And I immediately got Rich on. I was like, oh, okay. I immediately hit that goal. So what other goal could I set that would blow my mind? And I was like, what if I got invited to come on Rule Zero? Right? And a lot of people might think that's not that big of a deal, but other people, if you ask, man, Rollo's got almost like a cult-like following. And if you ask probably someone in his audience, hey, would you like to come on Rule Zero? They would be like, what? This is a big deal. That's how I felt. So I was like, if I get invited to go on Rule Zero, that would be a big deal, and it would absolutely blow my mind. So I made it a goal. And so as I'm working on this goal, and one thing you'll find too, and I talk about this in the course, is that oftentimes, and I've already mentioned it too, oftentimes when you set these big goals, you have no idea how you're going to get there, but you don't need to know, because as you're focusing on these goals, you sort of get these ideas in your head. And the important thing is that when you get these ideas, you act on them. In the commercial, I talk about the law of attraction is nothing without action, right? Because otherwise if you just have these goals and you never take any action towards them, you're basically just daydreaming. You know what I mean? It's wishful thinking. Yeah, look at this. I'd like to be on Rule Zero, right? It would be effing cool, wouldn't it? And Alex, you're a good dude. You have a lot of information. You have a lot of value. Ryan likes you. Like, it's a possibility. It's not something that couldn't happen someday. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, like, just being invited on was something that was going to just basically like blow my mind, right? And I was like, and if this happens, I'll know this sort of stuff works, right? That's the sort of thing that I talk about, is you set these goals, and when you're working towards these goals, like as they come up or as you start seeing little hints that they might happen, it really does like blow your mind. You're like, holy like this is crazy. I call it raindrops in this, right? Because when it's raining, it doesn't start out as like an absolute downpour. It starts out as little raindrops. You start seeing these little sort of signs that it's going to happen, but it's not magic. I just want to stress that it's not magic. So as I'm focusing on Rule Zero, and I get these ideas like, oh, hey, invite so-and-so on your show, invite, John Fitch on your show or whatever, get Paul Benjamin back on. I had both Ryan on twice and Paul on twice during this time. I also, I think maybe it was September, just had this idea. I was reading Rollo's latest book, the Player's Handbook. Just all of a sudden, I'm reading this book, and one thing that became very clear to me while reading this book, and if you guys haven't read Rollo's Player's Handbook's great. Love that book. One of the things that I realized as I was going through is that he's laying out 49 maxims, right? Well, I wasn't sure. I'm listening to it going, is he going to do 48 maxims? Like, is this going to be like a 48 laws of power, but instead it's 48 maxims of game? And so after I hit 48, I kept reading, and then boom, nope, 49. I was like, okay, I see what you did there. But as I'm listening to these maxims, I get this idea in my head. You know what? You should make a series. You should make a TikTok series on the 49 maxims of game and tag Rollo in it. And I figured it was probably going to be okay with Rollo because, one, give him all the credit. I'm basically promoting his book for him for free. And but I also didn't want to just, sort of regurgitate everything in his book. So I named the maxim, and then I talk about it from my perspective, based on the stuff that I've learned in the process of studying game. But I'm start tagging Rollo in all these damn things. I bet you he was annoyed. He was probably annoyed, but also kind of like happy about it because it was like free promotion of his book. Hopefully I definitely know I sold a bunch of copies because people were DMing me saying, hey, what's the name of that book? Hey, I just bought that book. Hey, I'm reading that book now. And a lot of it was because of those 49 maxims. But it was win-win, right? It gave me content, gave Rollo free publicity, win-win. But it was not long after that every once in a while, because I was tagging Rollo, and when you tag people on like Instagram, it basically sends them a DM letting them know that they were tagged. And, Rollo was seeing that stuff periodically. He would DM me back, and, we would chat a little bit, and it was really cool. And then I would pop into his live streams. This was another thing that I did too. I got this idea that if I want to be on Rule Zero, I sort of need to insert myself into the consciousness of the panel. And so I would watch their live streams. I'm a huge fan of all of them. I still am. In fact, I was watching Clary stream last night and sent him a super chat. So one thing I was like, you know what? If I watch Rule Zero on Saturdays, I made that a habit. Watching Rule Zero every Saturday morning became my routine. If I tune in for a little bit of Rollo's like 7-hour live streams, And I could learn something. I can support his channel. I could send super chats, right? So one of the things that I started doing was started sending everybody super chats. One, it was affordable advertising for me, because let's say you're a YouTube channel, right? If you go on bigger people's YouTube channels and they share super chats, that's an advertisement for you guys. FYI, if you guys are learning to trying to figure out how to build your YouTube channels, that's one way of getting eyes on you, is going on some of these bigger channels in your niche and buy super chats. Just don't be annoying about it. Although it's hard to annoy people when you're giving them money, I found. But yeah, I mean, I'll go on, I'd go watch Ryan's stuff. I love Ryan's stuff, man. Ryan's such a cynical guy, but I learned so much from him. His T-Rex army will probably agree with that. Go on Paul Benjamin's stuff. I basically sent all these guys super chats, inserting myself into the sort of collective consciousness of those guys. But this was all just like ideas, like, hey, you should do this. Go support them. Go send them super chats. But it's not magic, guys, right? You get these ideas, you act on these ideas, it leads you one step closer to your goal, but you don't have to necessarily know how you're going to get to the goal when you set that goal, right? As long as you're focused on it, your brain will sort of like a car driving at night, it will sort of illuminate the way as you're going along, but it's not magic. It's not like this stuff materialized. It's not like I, hypnotized Rollo into getting on the panel. It was like I was working towards this goal. I started getting ideas on how could I possibly, get in front of these guys so that even becomes a possibility. And so your brain comes up with really fantastic ideas. The problem is that most people just don't act on those ideas, right? So again, law of attraction is nothing without action. You have to, as you're getting these epiphanies, you need to act on them. Sometimes the epiphanies aren't, hey, go buy super chats. Sometimes the epiphanies are as simple as, read this book, study this. One thing that I want to do this year, is I want to really start building out the podcast so that this could potentially be like my full-time gig. I'd really love to be a full-time, YouTuber, do this, write books and stuff like that. One of the greatest things about associating with the guys on Rule Zero is like that's what they're like. Most of them are doing. They're doing this full time, and so I have the opportunity to sort of pick their brains a little bit. It's great. I went to go visit Clary at his bunker, and for an entire weekend, got to go hiking with him and just pick his brain. He was really cool, telling me like, oh yeah, this is how you do it. This is this is why I'm doing live streams right now, because I talked to Clary, and Clary's like, you got to do more live streams. Fuck, fine. Clary says so. So here I am. But yeah, I mean, you don't need to necessarily know where you're going. And so one of the things that happens, like I mentioned earlier, you have these like little coincidences, like little things will pop up, your reticular activating system's working. And I was on Rule Zero a couple of weekends ago. John MLD came back, right, for that. It was the end of the year show. And John MLD, I don't know if he likes me or not, doesn't really matter, but I learned a lot from him. He named 3 books on that episode, right? And he's like, hey, if you really want to study marketing and understanding this type of stuff, which is one of my goals this year, he's like, read these 3 books and study them. And all of a sudden I just got this idea in my head, like, dude, you basically learned game and dating women from 3 books and listening to them on repeat. I bet you could do the same thing with this marketing stuff. And these 3 books that MLD recommended. So in the backstage chat, I said, hey, what were those books again? I don't know if he saw that or if he just actively ignored me. I don't know. he didn't get back to me on that. So I had to go back, watch the episode, and find that spot where he recommended the books. And so I got those on Audible. And I also ordered the hard copies of those. And I'm going to do what MLD says, right? Study these books. And he's like, with it for like 6 months. And he's like, you'll get this stuff down. You get ideas like that, when you set these types of goals. Oh, here we go. $5 super chat. My man, check this out. You get this. This is what you get. Here we go. Ready?
I was just going to say it. This guy fucks. Am I right?
Am I right? Jordan Foster, $5 super chat. Do you think the Simpsons predictions are at all connected to the law of attraction? No. I don't. That's a good question, though. I did, there's a theory, there's a working theory, and this is probably total bullshit, but that one of the writers on the show is a time traveler. What do you guys think? Do you think the writers are time travelers? I don't know. I think sometimes there's like hints that some of the stuff will happen. I don't know, but their predictions are pretty mind-blowing. They really are. I don't know how they would be connected to the law of attraction, though, because that's not really what the law of attraction is. I mean, okay, if you want to get into the woo-woo of law of attraction and how, we all have a collective consciousness. If we all have a collective consciousness, let's say that's true for a minute. That's not what my course is about, but let's say that's true for a minute. If we all have a collective consciousness, then yeah, that's possible. You put something out like that, you have millions of people thinking in a certain direction, then, if that's true and the quantum field theory and all that could potentially, maybe, but no, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go there. That's going to water down what my course is about. My course isn't about, crystals and magic 8 balls and stuff like that. It's really a course on mindset and how to change your mind, how to reprogram your subconscious, and how to basically get your reticular activating system working for you. So anyway, long story short, I think I sort of led to that. Basically, getting everyone on the show, doing super chats. These are all things that sort of came to my mind as things that could potentially get me into the consciousness of having, of being on the show and eventually being invited on. And what ended up happening is one day I'm sitting there, and I get this telegram message from a guy who is one of the moderators for Fresh and Fit. And he follows me, and he's like, I heard on one of Rollo's streams that he wants to, get you on a show or something. And I was just like, what? Do you know what episode it was? And he couldn't figure it out. I didn't know. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's a raindrop. I don't know. And then I started watching more of Rollo's streams, started sending super chats in and stuff like that. And what really solidified it was one day I sent Rollo a super chat, and he couldn't remember my name. And I was like, oh God, like right here, right? So I put it on Twitter, sort of tongue in cheek, and I was like, when Rollo doesn't remember your name in a live stream, and it was just a picture of a knife and a heart. So Rollo replied to that, and he's like, well, I'm going to invite you on Rule 0, so to make it up to you. And I was just like, my mind was absolutely blown. Took a screenshot of it because that's what I was working for all year. And the funny thing is, my goal wasn't necessarily to be on the panel permanently, right? Because I would see, like Jack Napier. Jack Napier pops in occasionally as almost like a guest. He's usually a guest of Clary's when he comes on. And I was like, that's all I was really sort of working towards, was being a guest one day on Rule 0. And but that's not what happened. Like, they invited me to be a permanent panelist. And not only that, my first episode, they let me host it. That was just absolutely mind blowing to me. So, but if you focus on these types of goals, you'll achieve them as long as you sort of stay focused on them. And the course will teach you how to do that. It's actually pretty good stuff. And one of the reasons why I made this course first, right? One of the things that Clary told me at the bunker was that I needed to make a course. And at that time, I was like, well, what would I even make a course on that nobody in the space has even talked about, you know? And so I actually have an idea for another course, but I didn't want to start with that because for me, everything starts with law of attraction. It really does because and I talk about it in the course too. I add a little red pill element to it. Like Rollo talks about being your own mental point of origin, so you need to have these goals that are based on what's best for you. A lot of people, sort of fall into careers and stuff like that because they're trying to make someone else happy. Like, no, like you need to make these goals for you. Like what's best for you? What's your purpose? Right. And a lot of guys don't know how to find their purpose. So I wanted to start with the law of attraction because it will help you sit down and actually think out like what do you want your end state to be? What do you want your life to be in like 5 years? And then you sort of work towards that goal, and that's how you end up finding your purpose. You know what I mean? So I wanted to make my first course based on this. I'm writing a book right now. I swear to God, I'm going to finish it. I've been writing it for a year now. And my book is on everything I wish I learned when I was 18. And the first chapter is on law of attraction, because if you start there, everything else that you want in your life will fall in line once you learn how to do this stuff. And it's not magic, right? A lot of it is basically goal setting and learning how to work towards and achieve goals. It's not, it's not fucking tarot cards and my man here, Skyriminal Order, Alex, I put a tweet out about the practical law of attraction course. He gave me shit about like horoscopes and stuff. It's like it has nothing to do with any of that stuff, stars aligning or whatever, dude. It's like it's focusing your mind on a goal and achieving goals. You know what I mean? So that's why it's practical law of attraction. So, my man, make this a goal. make it like it is a goal already, but I mean, really focus on that goal, and you'll probably get here someday. Yeah, give me that chick crack. The funny thing is, if you guys have been following me for a while on like Twitter, I occasionally post like books that I'm reading or I'm listening to on Audible, and I call it the brain train, right? Like next up on the brain train. And I've read 3 of the secret books in the Secret series, right? I've read the first one, watched the movie a million times. Those aren't even like the best. Like if you want to really learn law of attraction, like you got to go back to like turn of the century stuff, like the Master Key System, Think and Grow Rich. What's another good one? There's one called Thought Vibrations or Law of Attraction in the Thought World by Atkinson, I think his name is. You want to read that stuff, right? Because it's really like less of the chick crack. But Rhonda Burns really puts that fucking chakra. I don't even know what a chakra is. I think it's, energy points in the body or something, allegedly. Binaural beats, right? Makes you feel good though. One of the things I talk about in the course is how a lot of this stuff, it sort of makes you feel good. It makes you feel good, right? And Dr. Wayne Dyer, who's been teaching this stuff like since like the 60s, like through the 70s, maybe even the 80s. I watched a talk that he did, and someone asked about crystals, and he goes, "Look, it's not the crystal. It's not the crystal that's doing anything, right? It's your belief that the crystal is doing something that's probably, giving you positive benefits." So it's like, what does Ryan say? Ryan doesn't really talk about this, but he says, look, if you tell a guy that the moon is made out of cheese and that gets him to go to the gym, then the moon is made out of cheese, right? So if you tell people that this crystal is magic, it's like the Dumbo theory, the Dumbo theory. It's a lot of it is placebo effect. So, man, I had what's his name? Bulldog Mindset um, Bulldog Mindset John was on my show one time, and we were talking about law of attraction stuff. Because if you go to his website, he lists, Think and Grow Rich and a couple of other really, law of attraction type stuff. And I asked him about it, and he goes, at some point you just realize that it doesn't matter why it works, it just does. And he goes, so he likened it to the Dumbo feather theory, right? Which is, could Dumbo fly without the feather? Actually, maybe not, because it was his belief in the feather that got him to fly in the first place, right? So that's the kind of idea behind that, right? It's almost like a placebo effect. Oh, yeah. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. That one's a good one too. In fact, I listened to that on Audible, and it was read by Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale's version of it's really good. Earl Nightingale has like a real, booming voice. He was really good at that sort of thing. All right. Well, we're almost we're at an hour here, guys. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I'm going to wrap up here. If you guys haven't done so already and you're still sticking around, please like, subscribe, hit those notifications, drop a comment. A lot of you guys are commenting in the live chat, but if you're watching the replay, make sure you leave a comment down below. If you guys ever tune in for these live streams, send a super chat, help support the show, and then you get this drop here.
I was just going to say it. This guy fucks. Am I right?
Just a little thank you. This guy fucks. Be sure to follow me on social media. I'm at Come On Man Pod or at Come On Man Podcast on most platforms. I'm really active on Twitter lately. I have a lot of fun on there, especially since Elon took over. It's great. It's not censorship city. Say that 5 times fast. Censorship city. Like on TikTok, I'm just completely shadow banned. Like most of my videos don't even break 100 views anymore. It's like I used to get like 60,000 views and stuff like that. No, I still get that on YouTube though. I have a YouTube short that has almost it's got 1.7 million views on it. Like that's what's really built my channel up is shorts. That hasn't transitioned to these long form content though. I wish more people that tuned in for the shorts would do that. Oh, well, get in here sooner next time, man. It's at 10 a.m. Eastern. Oh yeah, you've abandoned TikTok. Yeah, I upload there, but I spend almost no time there anymore. It's not worth my time. I spend most of my time on Instagram, honestly, Instagram and Twitter. All right, where are we going with this? Oh yeah, support the show, patreon.com/comeonmanpod. You can join for as little as $10. You get added to the beer credits at the end of Monday's episodes. And you get all the Monday's episodes ad-free. So just the interview portion ad-free if you join. And then if you want any kind of like coaching type stuff, you can join tier 2. Tier 2 gives you unlimited tech support. So not tech support, but texting support, right? So you can text me pretty much anytime, day or night over Telegram. You can send me screenshots. You can send me voice messages, video messages. And, I get back to you relatively quickly with stuff. I have a guy who's actually a premium member, and he's been a premium member for like 6 months now. And he's never once hit me up for a call. I reached out to him for the first couple of months, like, hey man, you're paying for this. And he was just like, he finally got back to me. He's like, oh, I'm just happy to help support you. Your content's helped me out so much. Cool, man. Well, he finally hit me up on Telegram. He's like, hey man, he had something that he was going through. It was, he was trying to figure out how to get over anxiety. He was really feeling anxious about something that was sort of out of control, out of his control, I should say. And so I sort of walked him through it. One of the things that I've learned, from Dr. Robert Glover is that thinking causes anxiety, but taking action tends to cure it. And if you can't take action on something because it's out of your control, well, then you need to really sit there and think about it and go, well, I can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about it. So why worry about it? And once you sort of sit with that sort of thing, it tends to sort of clear up your anxiousness a little bit for a lot of people. Also, sitting there and taking deep breaths and listening to relaxing music is very helpful with stuff like that. All right. Get on the email list. Man, I am rambling on right now. Get on the email list, list.comeonmanpod.com. That way I can contact you if I ever get deplatformed, from any of these platforms, like I did with TikTok. And I'll send you some free stickers. I'm not spamming people. Anybody that's on the list, actually, they complained. I had a guy join the list and he complained that I didn't send him like a welcome email. And I'm like, well, I'm really just, I'm on the free version of MailChimp, and MailChimp won't let you do automation like that for the free version. So I periodically go on there and send welcome emails, like sort of like once a week, but I'm not, sending, sales emails. I should. I probably, do better with my Patreon and my course if I spam the shit out of you guys, but that's not really my intention. My intention is to be able to just contact you if I ever get deplatformed. And then finally, as I've talked about this whole episode, check out the Practical Law of Attraction course, loa.comeonmanpod.com. And the coupon codes have been used up. So for you guys that have already taken the course, I'm going to be pinging people and trying to get some, some reviews. I actually have some people that have DM'd me and given me their reviews. If you go to the course link right now, people have actually taken the time to give it, it's on Gumroad, right? Like, come on. How can I be in the manosphere without having a Gumroad course, right? So anyway, it's on Gumroad because, talking with Jack Napier, he's got courses on Gumroad, and so does John Fitch. And they were like, so does Thor, right? They all have Gumroad courses, and they use Gumroad because it just makes it's really an easy to use platform to post this type of stuff. A lot of grifters take advantage of how easy it is to do that. So they sell you $95 fucking PDFs. But this isn't a $95 PDF. Okay. It's about 4.5 hours. It's about 4.5 hours of material. There's different lessons in there, and I walk you through all this stuff step by step. So check that out. But if you waited this long to do it, unfortunately for you, the coupon codes have all been used up. So I might have some in the future. So be on the lookout for that if you really want to try this course out. All right. That's all I have for today, guys. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you. Tune in tomorrow morning we're always on at 11:30 Eastern time on Rule Zero. I believe Cappy's hosting it this week. But Thor and I were new, right? So Thor and I are like anxious. We're like, ooh, we're hosting, and we'll post that we're hosting and what the show's about like on Wednesday, and get out ahead. And then that gives the other guys chances to retweet it, and it helps us out. And we're all anxious because we're the newbies, right? The other guys are fucking jaded as hell. They're like, oh, I'm hosting. Like, so they'll fucking tweet it out like the day of, or like the morning, the day before, the night before. It's just like, damn, I'd like to get to the point where I just don't give a shit. But I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm still excited when I get to host. So, all right, guys, we'll see you over on Rule Zero tomorrow morning. Talk to you later.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. Now, go out and get it.